Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you and to our honorable guests. Welcome to the inaugural European Research Days 2020, Australia and New Zealand, a flagship event of Euraxess, Australia and New Zealand, organized in collaboration with the delegation of the European Union to Australia and the delegation of the European Union to New Zealand. We are delighted to have almost 450 registrations from more than 50 countries. My name is Nishant Sandilya, and I'm the regional representative for Euraxess, Australia and New Zealand. For those who have joined our event for the first time, Euraxess is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. We provide free information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. Since all of you are watching this on your laptop or phone, I'll encourage you to type Euraxess Australia and New Zealand on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook and follow us there. You can as well tweet about this event with the handle #ERD_ANZ. Moving on to today's session, just to give you the running order, as this is the first day of this 3-day event, we will begin with the opening ceremony. This will be followed by the first session, which is a high-level panel on Australia and New Zealand, EU member states, research cooperation, and the role of scientific diaspora. In an hour's time, we will move on to the second session, which is a special panel on the impact of COVID-19 on researchers' work and mobility. We will close this 3-hour day with the highlight session on Stronger Together, the importance of international scientific collaboration during and after a pandemic. I'd like to encourage all of you to please use the question function in the Zoom interface to ask any questions that you might have while our speakers are speaking. We will come back to take your questions at the end of the session. Without further ado, please allow me to pass the platform to Her Excellency Nina Obermaier, Ambassador of the European Union to New Zealand, to deliver their welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Nishant. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon, Australia. Good evening, New Zealand. As the European Union's ambassador to Aotearoa, New Zealand, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the very first edition of the European Research Days for Australia and New Zealand. As you are all aware, otherwise you wouldn't have dialed in, the European Union is a key global player in research and innovation. And research and innovation are essential for Europe's modernization, its green and digital transition, and of course, its recovery from COVID-19. Speaking of COVID-19, let me give you one concrete example of EU research funding. I'm very proud to mention that 1 year ago, the European Union provided 50 million euros of funding to a biotechnology company called BioNTech. 1 year later, this company has gone on to develop one of the most promising COVID vaccines. European Union funding for research and innovation makes a real difference in all our lives in Europe and beyond. We will continue to invest heavily in research and innovation in the years to come. Our next 7-year framework program, Horizon Europe, will have a budget of 85 billion euros. That's 138 Australian dollars or 145 billion New Zealand dollars. International cooperation will continue to be a key component of our research policy. Solving global challenges like tackling climate change, overcoming COVID-19, or finding a cure for cancer requires researchers from across the globe to join forces. And this is where you come in, dear students and researchers in both Australia and New Zealand. Europe has a strong partnership with both Australia and New Zealand on research and innovation. Australia was the first country outside Europe to sign a scientific cooperation agreement with the EU in 1994. New Zealand followed a little bit later in 2008. There are strong exchanges between our universities, companies, and research institutes, and there are many opportunities for researchers from Australia and New Zealand either to come to Europe to carry out research or to participate from home in joint research projects with European counterparts. Hundreds of Australians and New Zealanders have already done so, and we hope many more of you will join in the future. Over the next 3 days, We will discuss many aspects of research cooperation between Europe and Australia and New Zealand. We will discuss the impact of COVID-19, and we will discuss the role of science in addressing global challenges. I very much hope that the European Research Days will inspire you to embark on new scientific adventures and to join forces with researchers in Europe. I personally will be back with you at the end of the 3 days to discuss in more detail the Horizon Europe program for research and innovation and the European Green Deal and what it means for Australia and New Zealand. Thank you very much for your attention and good luck with the event, and Nishant, continue the excellent work you've done so far. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Madam Ambassador. We are indeed very honored to have you with us. And as you already mentioned, to all the audience, please note that Her Excellency will join us on day 3 for the highlight session, which will be at 6:30 p.m. Australian time, that is 8:30 p.m. New Zealand time. Now, to continue further with the welcoming remarks, I'd like to pass the platform to Dr. Fabio Spadi, who is the head of the Political Press and Information section at the Delegation of the European Union to Australia. After the welcoming remarks, we are also privileged to have Dr. Spadi stay with us to moderate the first session of the day. Over to you, Dr. Spadi.
Hello and welcome to everybody. My welcome remarks will be very short because I can subscribe 100% to what excellently the Ambassador to New Zealand has just said about the importance and relevance of research and innovation in Europe, in the European Union, and the programs that we fund to stimulate this research and innovation. And of course, cooperation with Australia and New Zealand is extremely important. It has produced a lot. We wanted to go further, go deeper, and we hope that these days will help us do that, or at least create the curiosity or the interest to stimulate questions that can then develop into something concrete and positive for all of us. So with that, my welcome is finished from across the puddle, and I would like to introduce the panel speakers for our high-level panel on member state research cooperation and the role of the scientific diaspora. So I'm very pleased to inform you that with us we have His Excellency Dr. Thomas Fitchen, apologies for the very bad pronunciation, who is the Ambassador of Germany to Australia. His Excellency Mr. Brendan O'Calloy, Ambassador of Ireland to Australia. This is even more difficult. I hope His Excellency Mr. Michal Kolodziejski, Ambassador of Poland to Australia, is online. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here by phone. Thank you, Fabio. Yep.
Fantastic, great. And then we have Her Excellency Miss Alicia Moral Revilla, Ambassador of Spain to Australia. And unfortunately, are not able to be with us, Her Excellency Miss Francesca Tardioli, Ambassador of Italy to Australia, and Her Excellency Miss Sylvaine Carta-Levert, Ambassador of France to New Zealand, who, however, have been so kind to share with us a pre-recorded message that we will play at the end of the first half of this panel session. Now, to get the discussion going, I will pose a question to all our panelists, and the question is simple and complex at the same time. And essentially, it's this: how do you see your role, the role of your embassy, and the role of the scientific diaspora, i.e. the researchers from your country working here in Australia, but also at home, in promoting cooperation between the EU, your own country, and Australia in research and innovation matters? And that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, what else could we do, all of us, to strengthen this cooperation based on what you've already seen has been working well, but also on what has not been working so well? So, you know, essentially, it's at bit of a lessons learned exercise. I hope after the answers to these kind of questions by the ambassadors, we will be able to open it up a bit to the public to see, not the public, to the attendees, to see what they have to say about this and whether they want to comment on what they just heard. So I will now pass the floor to each of the ambassadors I just mentioned. May I remind you that the reply has to be within 5-6 minutes. I'll be flexible, but not too flexible. So please, Ambassador of Germany, Dr. Thomas Fitschen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, and a warm welcome and good afternoon from Canberra. At the outset, let me just flag I have a slight problem with the term scientific diaspora with a capital D. I know it's widely used in the English language, but in German social sciences, diaspora is used for a different type of migration. We can't discuss it here, so never mind. I'd rather call them the expert scientist community. Two observations.
Let's call them scientific community.
Yeah, scientific community. Two observations. One is, well, of course, countless German academics come to Australia every year, and many stay. Similarly, many Australian researchers choose Germany as a basis for their scientific careers. Importantly, both sides maintain strong scientific links to their respective home countries, building something like a science bridge between Germany and Australia that allows our bilateral research cooperation to continue and to expand. We therefore consider this community not as a brain drain for Germany, but quite the opposite. They are research ambassadors for Germany and for all of Europe. So I think this mindset is important. Secondly, on the role of the embassy, well, our scientists are of course well-trained professionals. Both countries have a world-class research system, and bottom-up approaches such as research cooperation between individuals work extremely well. So my guess is our scientists are often best left alone without us governments trying to interfere and trying to manage them. I think that embassies should merely have a supporting role, providing additional information, guidance, advice, or assistance as required, and to help managing the networks that develop out of these scientific communities. That's my response for the first question. Thank you.
Very concise and very to the point. And so we now pass the floor to the Ambassador of Ireland.
Well,
Brendan.
Sorry, thank you, Fabio, and thanks to Thomas, and thanks to Nina and to Nishant for this opportunity. Obviously in Ireland, the word diaspora is a very, very positive word. We calculate somewhere around 70 million people around the globe have Irish heritage. So we use it very, very much. Indeed, last week we published our new diaspora strategy, and there was specific reference in that to the role of our science and technical diaspora, and that we will seek to better utilize them and better organize them and better connect them both together within the countries in which they live, and more importantly, from my point of view and Ireland's point of view, back to Ireland. We already have very significant contacts. Clearly, it's easier in a country like this where there are no language or only minor cultural differences, and we've worked to use that as much as possible. I mean, obviously, a country like Ireland is very dependent on research and scientific research. We both attract a lot of foreign direct investment from other countries, and we've a lot of big kind of companies working in pharma, big data, medical devices, nanotechnology, marine renewable energy, food for health, perinatal research, applied geoscience, software, digital content, telecommunications, medical, all those things. What I'm saying is that that is what has brought Ireland from being a comparatively poor country back in the early 70s to being one of the better finance companies in recent times. And a lot of that has been hugely dependent on our diaspora, whether it's scientific, whether it's research or whatever. But the next stage, the next challenge for us, given COVID-19, given Brexit and everything else that's coming, that may come between now and whenever, we continue to depend very strongly on that. we have very strong links into the university system here. There's quite a lot of Irish academics or people of Irish heritage in senior positions within science and research across Australia, and we network with them. I'm sure it's the same in New Zealand. My colleague Peter Ryan in Wellington will be able to pronounce better on that. But it's crucial to our welfare. It's crucial to our ongoing ability to overcome the challenges that we will face post-COVID. We were in very good shape coming into the COVID. We're suffering like everybody else. And indeed, part of the pharma industry in Ireland is one of those looking at a possible cure. So we look on our brothers and sisters of the diaspora across Australia and New Zealand as a key part of our family. And whether they're Irish, of Irish heritage, or just people who have studied in Ireland, or just people who want to get into very good world-class research facilities run by Science Foundation Ireland, run by the Irish Research Council, or any of the top, the very significant and good universities that we have and other third-level institutions. As I say, we do feel the embassy both here in Wellington, we see a very active role for us in this, supportive. I absolutely agree with Thomas. Scientists and researchers better to talk to one another. They literally speak the same language, but our role would be to facilitate that at European Union level and a bilateral level. And with that, I'll take break and give somebody else the floor.
May I ask a supplementary question? I don't want to go off rail. Is it easy for Ireland and for Germany to map the level of interaction between universities and researchers here in Australia with the ones back home?
I'll make it first, Thomas. Is that okay? Just
Sure.
No, it's not. We've been trying to do that exercise, and there is some limited success. But there's a lot more that we could do through contexts like this, through the EU, through Nishan's organization. I think that we need more of this. We need more coordination. We need more collaboration. Certainly, I'd very much welcome that. That's my response.
Well, in our case, in our case, it may be a bit easier. First of all, we have a treaty basis. There are more than 600 not bilateral agreements, but agreements between German and Australian universities concluded since the mid-1970s. So that's the legal basis. Plus, a lot of the German researchers that come to Australia are being funded through scholarships and other things by, for example, the German Academic Exchange Service or the Humboldt Foundation. And of course, both, and Humboldt in particular, take great care also to keep in touch with those people after a research project is done. So especially the Humboldtians, that's a global network. They are connected, 30,000 researchers in 140 countries. So that's for us a good inroad to keep in touch with these scientists and to have a fairly good idea of who is working on what. In addition, the German Academic Exchange Service has a joint funding scheme concluded with Universities Australia. They have awarded funding to almost 400 projects under this scheme. So again, there we have a fairly good overview of who works on what and how these projects are being carried out. So that helps a great deal, having these informal networks that are run by the German funding institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now pass the floor to, if he's online, still online, to Ambassador Kolosiewski. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello, good afternoon,
Fantastic.
everybody.
Good
Can
afternoon.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, beautiful. This is the beauty of webinars, that at the very last moment something goes wrong. And I experienced for the first time some technical problems. I joined as an audience, so I can see you and I can hear you. You cannot see me. That's why I had to dial in, so at least you can hear me.
We see a beautiful green dot with a phone.
Oh, beautiful. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks to the Euraxess Australia and New Zealand, as well as to the EU delegations in Canberra and Wellington for organizing this conference. Undoubtedly, academic cooperation, including cooperation in research, science, and innovation, is increasingly gaining in importance in Poland's bilateral relations with Australia. And there is a lot of potential to be exploited. One role of my embassy is to encourage interest and to promote connection making and collaboration opportunities between potential stakeholders from both countries. We work closely with the Ministry of Science and other Polish institutions to promote Polish science in Australia, but also directly with universities from both countries, trying to present opportunities for them to start or deepen collaboration. When it comes to the role of Polish diaspora, well, we have approximately 200,000 people in Australia who are either Polish citizens or second, third generation Polish migrants and who identify as Poles. Good number of them pursue an academic career working at the universities or at other research institutions here. And their role is absolutely fundamental, vital. Their recognition here as highly qualified researchers or academics elevates the overall good image of Poland, creating interest in even more cooperation in the future. Our observations so far show that a great part of the research cooperation is taking place actually without any particular involvement of our embassy, mainly as a result of direct contacts on the level of research institutions and universities, or even between individual researchers, often with a Polish background. But that's good. I believe that this bottom-up approach is a good way to establish long-term and mutually beneficial research partnerships. Actually, this is a distinctive feature of scientific collaboration with Australia, comparing to other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. The role of our embassy here in Australia is not as crucial as in China, Japan, or I don't know, South Korea, where Polish communities are tiny, but our embassies are huge. And the burden of initiating cooperation is more on shoulders of our diplomats. In Australia, it is the other way around, and I'm very happy about it. But when we speak about bilateral collaboration, we cannot forget about the other side of the equation, about advantages of strengthening the presence of the Australian scientific diaspora in Europe. There are plenty of opportunities to pursue a scientific career in the old continent, and I would like to take this opportunity, if I may, to mention about it as well. These opportunities are available on the level of European Union through European frameworks of research cooperation and on our national level as well. We have in Poland the National Agency for Academic Exchange, so-called NAWA, which is a government institution with a goal of fostering international cooperation of Polish academic and research institutions. It has a great experience in supporting projects in which partnership between universities was possible thanks to the commitment of Polish professors working abroad, but also foreign scholars working at Polish higher education institutions. The agency offers numerous programs addressed to Polish researchers planning to return to scientific work in Poland, or to young people of Polish origin wishing to undertake full-time programs at Polish universities. There are also programs which aim at facilitating exchanges and partnerships between Polish and foreign scholars and institutions. I'm not going to elaborate on details on each program, but let me just mention one of the NAWA's flagship programs, International Scholarship Exchange of PhD Candidates. A great example of this program is a close cooperation between University of Technology in Sydney and two Polish universities, the Warsaw School of Economics and Poznań University of Technology. So To sum up, the cooperation in science and research is a very important part of Polish-Australian relations. Poland has many research strengths and interests, particularly in areas that Australia and New Zealand are looking towards. We are looking to build our way out of this COVID-induced recession. We are on the similar trajectory with needing to find cleaner and better ways of powering our industries and our economies. We are also looking towards space, and Poland leads the way in key aspects of space tech. So we need to step up our student exchange and PhD scholarship to grow our pipeline of future researchers and build a platform of ongoing regular events which bring together EU researchers and multinational companies with R&D budget. Perhaps these events need to start online, but they will not be forever. And with COVID-19 pandemic, Europe might now seem difficult to reach, but I strongly believe that we will soon overcome this hardship, and potential actions taken now will bear fruits in the near future. So on this happy note, thank you.
It's on a hopeful note, yes. Thank you very much. Now, can I go to Her Excellency Miss Alicia Moral Revilla, Ambassador of Spain?
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I want to thank you, first of all, for inviting me to participate in this panel of the European Research Days. And I also want to congratulate you for this very interesting initiative of science diplomacy, that this is what it is. As Ambassador of Spain in Australia, I'm very proud of the existence of this Association of Spanish Researchers in Australia Pacific. This association was created in 2014 and counts, and this is part of the answer of my question, with the full support, financial and institutional, of the Embassy of Spain in Australia, Canberra. This association has 43 members of the Spanish Scientific Diaspora in Australia and New Zealand, and some countries of the Pacific. And it is a real platform to deepen relations between our civil societies from Spain, Europe, and civil societies here in Australia, well, New Zealand, or where these scientists are based. And I have to say that I really believe that these relations really contribute to closer bilateral relations. So this is a big contribution from the scientific community to the work we do, the diplomats we do. And of course, mutual understanding, which contributes very much to this closer relationships. In this sense, Spanish scientists living in Australia, with their excellence, project a very positive image of, in this case, of my country, which and its branding, and really they contribute to help to improve the perception that Australia or the Australians have about Spain, very far from stereotypes from the past. So I think this contribution is very important. Also, Spanish scientists living in Australia or in New Zealand or in other countries of the Pacific, in this case, they are enriched by the contact with Australian scientists, and at the same time they are enriching these countries with their European perspectives, with their expertise and different backgrounds. So really, briefly, I can say that this scientific diaspora contributes enormously to closer bilateral relations. They contribute to give a better image of my country, and of course the embassy encourages this scientific cooperation and supports very closely this association of scientists in Australia, New Zealand, and other countries in the Pacific. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I don't know if Nishant, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Maybe it's the right time to play the videos, the pre-recorded message, and then we will open the floor to questions from the other attendees, if you agree.
Sure.
Perfect. So should we start with the message by the Italian ambassador, Her Excellency Francesca Tardioli? Or okay, there you go.
distinguished authorities, dear colleagues, ambassadors, representatives of Euraxess, distinguished participants. I am very happy, and actually it's a privilege for me to share with you a brief reflection on the importance of research cooperation for Italy and of the value of the scientific diaspora. Scientific research and innovations are key elements in responding to increasingly urgent challenges that affect the entire world. The COVID pandemic has clearly shown once again, if it was necessary, how interdependent the world is and how important it is to share knowledge and capabilities. Mobilities for scientists is not a new condition. In the very early times, scientists used to travel from one university to another within Europe, and for instance, the Polish astronomus Nicolaus Copernicus, the theologian and humanist Erasmus from Rotterdam, William Harvey, who discovered the blood circulation, all studied or taught in Italy, just to name a few. And at the same time, many Italian scholars went to other countries in Europe. Today, international cooperation is even more dynamic, and scientific research benefits from the complementarity of both knowledge and infrastructures. The scientific diaspora provides an unmatched opportunity to strengthen international cooperation and multiculturalism among researchers from all the EU countries, and more broadly in our case, also with their Australian and New Zealand colleagues. Building a diaspora network and maintaining contacts with scientists abroad is of paramount importance. In Australia, the number of Italian scientists spread in almost all university or research centers has been growing really very fast, and now they are around 800, we believe, maybe more. Some involved in strategic projects such as the Square Kilometre Array, the study of dark matter in underground laboratories, and some in many other fascinating and promising projects on space, renewable energies, medical science, and many others. The Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation recognizes the value of the scientific diaspora and is committed in maintaining strong ties with the Italian researchers around the world. It promotes and supports the associations of Italian researchers abroad, and recently it has established the Day of the Italian Research in the World, corresponding to the anniversary of Leonardo da Vinci, to further celebrate the contribution of our scientists worldwide. I wish to thank very much Euraxess for organizing this European Research Day, and I wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Bonjour, and thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. And thank you to both our delegation of the EU in Wellington and in Canberra. And I am sorry not to be able to participate live, but I hope that this message will fit rightly into the panel. So just a few words to say that scientific research and technological innovation are really fundamental for economic and social development, and that France has committed considerable resources in its research. Our universities and research centers are recognized, I think, for their quality at international level. We have set numerous programs, projects, out of conviction that collaboration, mobility, and exchanges between researchers are the cornerstone of research excellence. So hundreds of partnerships are offered to French researchers and provide opportunities to expand their projects and gain international experience while being developed. And they know they can rely on our network of advisors, scientific cooperation attachés in our, I think, 160 embassies around the world. So this system of cooperation and collaboration has grown stronger over the years here in New Zealand. And our cooperation is based on two directions. Implement the Dumont d'Urville program. It's a co-funded program by France and New Zealand in order to support the mobility research between our two countries and common research projects. All scientific fields are, of course, concerned. And this year, 2 projects have been selected out of several dozen, which focus on the fight against climate change and the health safety. One is to measure the evolution of the ice in Antarctica, quite important because it's important to know the past in order to understand the future. And the second funded project has the objective of finding new drugs to fight against resistant bacteria, so quite timely. Then there is the support of the collaboration between New Zealand researchers and researchers based in the French territories of the South Pacific, New Caledonia, French Polynesia, and Wallis and Futuna. And this program is known as the Pacific Fund. It consists of financing scientific projects with imposed themes, very timely: fight against climate change, prevention of risks and disasters, the economic and industrial development, health and food safety projects, all touching the Pacific. The COVID-19 pandemic has stopped this year all mobilities and is forcing us to rethink our system. One of the possible lines of approach is to rely on the local scientific diaspora. And in New Zealand, we have around 200 French scientists, 45 of them being women. I mention it because it's quite a high percentage. For normally in the scientific community, it's never more than 25, 28%. And almost half of them have acquired the New Zealand citizenship. But most of them work in natural sciences and in all disciplines, biology, geology, whatever you can imagine, all disciplines. They are spread all over the whole country, and a little more of them work in the private sectors, others in government agencies and public institutions. And all of them have projects of research with French institutions. A couple of years ago, we also boosted the creation of FAST, which means France, Aotearoa, Scientific, Technological and Innovation, which is uniting the majority of the French scientists working in New Zealand and local scientists who have a link or work with France. FAST works facilitate, of course, the strengthening of the ties between France and New Zealand scientists. And in a situation like today with the pandemic, when we have not the possibility of having anyone coming from France, it's a way of continuing and maintaining our links of cooperation. French-related research program, which funds local projects by NZ-based researchers and conducted with researchers based in France. The program has been very successful. We have received more than 10 applications, and we will be funding 6 projects which focus again on protection of the environment and are very much in line with our very important green transition. Some of the subjects are a bit mysterious, so I won't mention it, like gobyfish fisheries or, traditional fishing, which are being conducted all over the Pacific, from Tahiti to New Zealand, and address all the important subjects of biodiversity and adaptation to climate change. My conclusion would be, on the basis of what we have achieved this year, what we have been trying to achieve this year, very much in a Pacific and European perspective, that crisis like COVID-19, beyond all the negative aspects, gives always the opportunity to create something new and something better. And that would be my message for all of us. Let's not miss this opportunity. Thank you.
I would say that's it. Thank you very much for participating and for listening in and for posing your very interesting questions. And please stay tuned to follow the research days tomorrow and on Friday. There'll be plenty of extra information that I'm sure you will find interesting. If not all of it, some of it, but that's how these things work. So thank you very much.